Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of War Thunder. As you can see here, we've got the TB3 again. If you remember in my last episode I did a bit of a review or look at the TB3, and basically at the end I sort of said it's a good plane but it's not the most useful in the world and it gets shot down quite easily. Because of its slow speed, its large size, you know, it wasn't the most useful aircraft in arcade. I did mention at the time, I think, that I hadn't used it in realistic battles. I hadn't tested it there. A few people in the comments section have actually mentioned it would probably be better in realistic as well. So basically I've gone ahead and tried it in realistic and, well, it's a massive improvement. I've already recorded the actual matches, so we'll quickly go over to them and I'll talk a little bit more about the aircraft. Now this was the first realistic battle I did with the TB3. It's Korea, so straight off the bat from spawning we're going at 80 miles an hour. I did record the whole match, but I'm not going to show you all of it because it took me 5 minutes to reach the bases. Not the enemy bases, 5 minutes to reach the friendly bases, which, you know, are like, you can see how near they are. It took me nearly 10 minutes just to get to the enemy bases. I have no idea what, well, I know why it took so long, because it's a slow plane, but that's probably the one big drawback about using this plane. Not gonna, well, while we're sort of flying towards the target, I will probably skip ahead in a little bit, but I'll talk a little bit about the history of the plane. Its first flight was in 1930, I think the end of 1913. It was introduced in about 1932. I'm having to rely on internet sources for this because most of my books don't deal with the TB3. But apparently it was the world's first cantilever wing 4-engine heavy bomber. Cantilever, if I'm not mistaken, is without the use of external struts and that. So yeah, quite an advanced aircraft for its day. Now, like I said, this was actually withdrawn in 1939. The Russians had used them against the Japanese. I don't know if it was a war, but Japan and Russia were Soviet Union had quite a few battles against each other around I think it was Khalkhin Gol. Can't remember exactly what happened, but basically Japan and Soviet Union had ended up fighting against each other. There had quite a few little border conflicts. Remember, Japan was sort of involved in China at this time. I think it might have started over Mongolia even. But basically Japan was beaten, and there's some people who sort of suggest this may have been why the Japanese didn't attack the Soviet Union along with the Germans. I believe Zhukov was involved in the battle. I think he was the general. I'm just trying to find. But I think, yeah, he was involved in the battle. I think it was him who launched the counter-attack against the Japanese. Which, you know, I'm guessing that sort of got him noticed before the whole battle, you know, the German invasion. I think these were also used in the Winter War against Finland. Like I said, I'm relying on internet sources, because my books don't have this plane listed. And some of the internet sources say it was used against the Finns. But, like I said, it was actually officially retired in 1939, but when the Germans invaded in 1941, they still had quite a lot of them left over, and a lot of the Soviet Air Force was destroyed on the ground or in the air, so they had to sort of put anything they had back into service. From what I understand, it was sort of put into a situation where it suffered quite badly, you know, daytime bombing without fire escort, and well, the Germans had a very good air force, and you know, a lot of them were shot down and by fighters, and then there's ground fire, you know, yeah, the flak guns. I mean, like we've seen in the game, it's a slow, big target. You know, it would have been a lot easier to shoot it down than with the more nimble fighters for the flak crews. But they were used for quite a lot of the war. From what I understand, they were still using them at the Battle of Kursk, and I heard they were used in the post-war air parade. Sort of recognise their role, so they were used for a long time, despite being, you know, withdrawn years earlier and being obsolete when the war actually started. They were used for sort of special variants. I'm trying to think of the right word. two that I can think of is the Parasite fighters. I think I've got it listed here as the Venno project. Well, basically it carries two fighters and then drops them off, and they go and bomb the target. These were actually used in the, operationally. The TB3 carrying two I-16s, which were armed with a few bombs. They were used in a few missions. Just trying to find targets here. One of the first targets apparently was the an attack against the Constanta oil depot. It was a successful attack in broad daylight, no losses. Doesn't say what damage it did though, so maybe only successful in that they got to the target and got out again. I think the main target that they were sort of first envisioned to attack was this King Carol I bridge over the Danube, which apparently carried the Palesti Constanta oil pipeline. The first attack, one of the fighters had to turn back, or one of the bombers, sorry, had to turn back, and the rest of the fighters got there and attacked the target, got home, but they didn't destroy the bridge. The second attack, there were 6 fighters. Apparently, they scored 5 direct hits on the bridges and completely destroyed one of the spans. And they made their way back and actually attacked a few little targets on the way back by strafing. But after that, they did a few more sorties, destroying a dry dock in Constanta and the bridge across the Dnipro, I think that's how it's pronounced, river. It was actually apparently during a repeat attack, 4 of the I-16s engaged Bf-109s and shot down 2. So they were quite successful, but in the end they were I don't know if they were withdrawn, but they stopped doing the missions in 1942 because obviously by now though the TB3 were really obsolete. The I-16s are getting quite obsolete, but they managed to fly 30 combat missions, so they took an extremely obsolete bomber and made it into something rather successful. Now, sort of getting back into the War Thunder game going on at the moment, you can see we've just reached our own friendly bases. Still got a little way to get to the enemy target, so I'm going to just skip the video forward a little bit. Now, you may have just seen mission objective failed popped up. That was actually to do with the enemy tanks going through the bridge. I think we didn't stop the enemy from... Well, I think the enemy destroyed the bridge, stopping our tanks from going across the bridge as well. Now, you can see I'm just sort of lining up for attacking the target. What I was hoping to do was bomb this target, bomb the next one. Well, I was going to drop like the 2 500kg bombs here, so then it would need... someone on the comment said it would take 1,500 kilograms to destroy it. So I was hoping to do 1,000 kilograms here, 1,000 kilograms on the next one, then try and use the 250 kilogram bombs to destroy both bases. So I could do it in an efficient way, but it turns out in arcade you drop them one at a time, but in realistic you drop them 2 at a time. So I ended up dropping something like 2,000 or 3,000 or 2,500 kilograms worth of bombs on one target, doing a massive overkill and only having like 500 or 250 kilograms left for the last one. So I'm just lining up for the target now. There's a Catalina in the distance. I was never bothered by any enemy aircraft, thankfully. Seemed to be mainly Furies and, biplanes, if I can remember right. So we're just lining up for the target. Coming up for it now. Should see it zoom in. There we go. And you'll see I dropped nearly my entire bomb load. Because I was hoping to drop, I think, 2 or 3 bombs, and instead I clicked it 3 times and then ended up dropping 6 bombs. I've sort of realising my mistake in a few seconds. I'm lining up for the next target because I might as well use the last bombs anyway to do some damage. You can see it's massive overkill. You'll see the first explosion, and then another 2. I just completely wasted most of my bombs there. Now this match really shows where the TB3 can shine, where you manage to bomb the targets without being engaged by enemy aircraft. Basically that's its main way of operating, just try and not draw attention to yourself. But you will see in one of the other matches I did get attention drawn to myself. well, in the two different matches. One match it turned out very bad. One match it turned out, well, ridiculously good. This match I was just happy enough not to be bothered by any enemies. We're approaching the new bomb site. I'm just going to skip it forward a little bit, trying to actually just speed it up rather than skipping. Actually, it seems to work a bit better, I suppose. There we are, straight at the target. I think I only had two 250 kilogram bombs left at this point, so I didn't actually do all that much damage. Basically, this was my contribution to the match over. I was on the way back. You know, it's a slow plane, and the enemy had lost all their targets. All their aircraft. So while I'm just flying on the way back, I'll talk about the other project the TB3 was involved with. Now, the other project it was involved in, as I was just saying, was the I'm trying to pronounce this, the Antonov A40 Krylia tanker. Apparently, this means tank wings in Russian. But basically, it was a Russian attempt at a glider tank, and basically, the intention was for a PEA, the other 4-engine bomber Russia used. They were actually produced. I think that was the only one they actually produced in the war. Like I said, the TB3 was produced before the war. Or the TB3 could be used to tow this, or carry this glider tank. From what I understand, it was a T60, and they actually used for the tank. But I'm trying to find the there was only one flight. I'm just trying to find it in the page. It was the tank was lightened for air use by removing its armament, ammunition, and headlights, leaving a very limited amount of fuel. Like I said, this was a test flight, but what next will probably show why it probably wasn't very practical. Even with the modifications, the TB3 bomber had to ditch the glider during its own flight to avoid crashing because of the extreme drag. Apparently the tank reportedly glided smoothly to the ground. When it landed near the aerodrome, and it dropped the glider pilot, or tank driver, I'm not sure which we would be classified as. Just dropped the glider wings and tails and returned to the base. The project was abandoned. I mean, like I said, it was lightened. It was modified to be lightened, and it still, you know, had to be dropped early because it was creating too much drag. So yeah, that was the other project. It was the other sort of special project the TB3 was involved in. In the game again, we're sort of being attacked by a flak. I can't remember if I took any serious damage. I think there was one near hit that sort of caused me to worry a little bit. I started pulling up. Yeah, I think that was it. So it seems like it was here. I'm sure there was a bit of spark in there. Maybe there wasn't. Maybe I'm imagining it. But I'm surprised I didn't do any damage. Even with a light gun, you would think there'd be a bit of damage caused to the aircraft. Now at this point I actually picked up a bit of an escort fighter on the way back. I didn't need it yet. Like I said, the enemy team lost all their vehicles. It's actually weird, my frame rate randomly just went really bad at this point. Probably not the place to talk about it, but I've noticed this sometimes I'll be having okay frame rate, and as soon as someone comes near me it just drops like stone. I have no idea why. But yeah, basically that's all the hostile team's vehicles gone. We'll quickly see how I did in the actual match. Point wise, I actually did worse than I should have point wise, because I actually forgot to, well, the efficient research, I forgot to change it from a tier 4 to a lower tier, and so I lost something like 40% of my points I should have got, which is a shame, but you know, what can I do about it now? Should be just seeing the points. So with double XP I got 1,778 for modifications, but it went down to about 1,000 after changing the, you know, after loop because of the inefficient research. Now I actually skipped the beginning bit of this match. It was mainly just me flying towards the target. I think someone asked me what my plan was for this match. Oh, there we go. I was just telling them I was going to bomb the bases. This was my second match, so I knew about the double dropping of the bombs, so I'd sort of worked out a way of taking out 2 or 3 of the bases in one go this time. But unfortunately, well, I'll quickly skip ahead to the moment. Is this where it starts? Oh no, I'll skip ahead to where I get attacked by enemy aircraft. So So just skipping forward, sort of talking. I think I end up talking about. Oh, there we go. Now it's a bit slow. Rather prophetic. Considering what happens next. You can see some enemy aircraft in the distance. It's an A6M2N. Now this is good because it's a Zero, but it's got a huge float on it, so not the most manoeuvrable aircraft. What is behind it, the Ki-45s, not so good. Twin engine fighters. They can have anything from like 20mm to 37mm cannons, if I remember correctly. So I'm trying to engage the Zero, but he's in my gunner's dead zone. He's being attacked. I actually noticed there's an LA5 in this match, which I was quite surprised. It seemed a bit over-tiered. And here's the Ki-45s coming in to attack. Got some hits in, but he's already damaged my wing quite badly, and I can't really... Well, I can't manually engage two enemy fights at the same time. I should have really left it to the gunners, so then they could prioritise the targets, maybe. But I'm being attacked, you know, I've already taken quite a bit of damage. I'm trying to dive, although there's no point doing that really. I'm still getting hits in, like hit here and there, so... And then that happens. It's weird, my pilot gets killed, my wing falls off on its own, then I get rammed by one of the pilots. Oh, here's the third match. I wasn't actually expecting to just skip there. Now this is where I did the best. I'm going to skip forward again because otherwise, you know, long journey to the front. Now this map I believe is Senghao. Now as you notice, there are no bases to destroy. What we have instead are bridges. You know, which is good. It would be nice to do more matches where you had strategic targets like bridges or I don't know, factories to destroy, which would give a bit of a, you know, a better job for these bombers. But as you can see, there's two A6M2Ns. Again, they're the biplane, the float plane versions. But they still carry, I think, 20mm cannons. I think they still have the same armament as the Zero, so they could be a bit of a problem. So I'm just sort of coming into attack the first bridge. I've decided to just use one bomb or one lot of bombs on each bridge. Coming up for the first bridge. So we're just getting... I'm not really sure how it's going to work, whether it... Because I've had problems where I've tried to drop bombs and sort of clips through the bridges, or it misses and hits the water, and then it's a bit of a touch and go if it will actually destroy or damage the bridge. In this case I seem to have got it right, and managed to get the bridge, which counts as 2 ground units, but I'm under attack. Gunners aren't firing, so I know I can't, there's no point manually doing anything. Now I'm coming up to the next bridge, drop my bombs, and then I decide to get onto the guns, and thankfully he made a pretty good target. I'm using the incendiary ammo. Like I said in my last video, I'd been using the wrong ammo, and they were, you know, they were just sitting on my tail, so it wasn't hard to hit them. And I've set them on fire. I'm getting hits on this guy. Not serious hits, but you know, enough to keep him away, do a bit of damage to him. Managed to shoot down the other Zero. I think he burnt to death. Or, you know, burnt out, sorry. Oh, my throat's getting a bit dry. Ah, lovely water. Coming up the next bridge. So I'm going to skip forward a little bit because, you know, at this point I'm just dropping bombs. It's when I'm on the way back that the other encounter happened. So basically at this point I just dropped some more bombs. You know, nothing really amazing happened. And then I'm just flying back to base. Now at this point, you know, the engines are starting to overheat, and I'd fiddled about with some of my settings before and changed some of the manual engine settings. So I'm trying to remember what the controls are. So just minding my own business, not looking at the radar. I think you can see the red dot there. It looks blue because I'm from where I am because it's movie maker, but I'm pretty sure that is an enemy aircraft coming in for me. So I'm about to go to controls, and then that happens. And it's a Ki-61 Haiyan. Now, I can't actually remember what weapons the Haiyan uses. I'll leave a little annotation saying what weapons it is, but it could potentially be anything from, I think, 12.7mm machine guns, 50 caliber machine guns to 20mm cannons, unless I'm mistaken. So I'm not really sure whether this is just going to be a minor irritant, or, you know, well, it wouldn't be a minor irritant even with the 50 caliber machine guns, because as we all know, the pilot is extremely exposed. Now I'm getting lots of hits on the guy, and he's, I don't know, there was quite a few times I wasn't sure if he was going to ram me. Like, he didn't ram me, thankfully. But he didn't. There was sort of like the evasive manoeuvres that, like, they were trying to get away from my guns, but they did it in a way that put them in the best position for my gunners to get a shot at them. So I kept getting hits in, and obviously they damaged me. My wings blackened, or sorry, dark red. I'm leaking fuel. I think one of my engines might be damaged. Can't quite tell. Oh no, actually I don't think it is, because one of them's a bit hotter than the others, so possibly damaged. I'm still getting hits in, but they're getting lots of hits on me. Now the wing's black, the body's gone red or pink. I think it's a red. I'm still getting hits in, but I'm just not setting them on fire. The one time I actually, you know, hope a Japanese plane will catch on fire, and it just won't happen. Maybe because it's an army fighter or something, but I finally get a critical hit on the tail, and at this point I think they end up just diving into the ground. I think they were diving when I hit them, although another enemy, other planes come in to try and deal with them. I'm actually getting flying speed too low at 120 miles an hour, and aircraft destroyed, just as our water overheated. So they did quite a bit of damage to us. I think you can see one of the engines is definitely gone pink or red now. Just coming in for landing, but by this point the game is practically over. There's literally like 10-20 seconds of game left. So we'll see how I actually did in the match in the end. I believe I did reasonably well. I think I actually unlocked a new aircraft, the Yak 1 I think it was, because I'd finally changed it to research an aircraft efficiently. You can see there nearly 5,000 points for 2 air kills and a couple of ground kills, and 40,000 Silver Lions. So, and I came top of my team. So yeah, so basically, I suppose we look at this as a review of the aircraft in realistic battles. Then yeah, it does have a place in the game. As we can see, it can still be destroyed. You know, because it is an obsolete bomber. It's quite slow. Well, yeah, it's massively slow. It's a big, huge target. The pilots are exposed. The gunners actually do a lot better here, because obviously the enemy, it's not like arcade where you can just manoeuvre all over the place, dodging shots. It's sort of the Ki-61. I managed to do quite well there against the E-0. So my verdict of the aircraft in realistic battle, well, basically it's an extremely good aircraft in realistic battle, or a lot better than it is in arcade battle. So yeah, I would recommend, if you do get this plane, try it out in realistic battle, where you will have a very good chance of actually doing well with this aircraft, playing it up to its strengths. Now, I didn't test it in simulator battles, or I did months ago, like just for fun, but basically the same strengths and weaknesses there. Some are more pronounced. For example, the aircraft not being able to manoeuvre out of your guns is a lot more valid in simulator battles, and because the enemy, you know, you're harder to spot, you'll probably have more success at being a bomber, you know, sneaking past the enemy and dealing a good amount of damage to the enemy bases. So yeah, I would recommend using this in realistic or simulator battles. Obviously, be a bit harder to control in simulator battles, but you'll generally have a lot more success. So yeah, a very good plane for realistic and simulator battles. Anyway, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this second look at the TB3. If you like the video, leave a like. Leave feedback, can always do with more feedback. Subscribe if you like these sorts of videos. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.